The story begins with two children playing inside a house deep in the middle of a forest. Suddenly, several shadows race past the window. They are actually dead people walking outside. This is a world where a deadly virus spread overnight, turning almost everyone into zombies. Humanity is slowly disappearing. The entire world has been suffering from the outbreak for the past 6 years. What is surprising is that this brother and sister have managed to survive alone in this cottage for all that time. It has not been easy. They have faced dangers that very few people could survive. One day, a couple arrives at the cottage. The boy, whose name is Jim, walks outside carrying his toy gun. The man immediately asks Jim where his parents are. Jim stays silent and says nothing. The man smiles and says, "See you later." That night, Jim and his sister carefully lock every door and window. Several zombies are wandering outside, waiting for any chance to get in. The two children stay safe until morning. After waking up, Jim checks the ammunition in his toy gun. Then the brother and sister go outside to play. A short time later, the same truck from the previous day returns. This time, the couple gets out and tries to be friendly with him. The man asks Jim once again about his parents. Jim lies and says they went deeper into the city to get supplies, but the lie does not work. The woman smiles and tells Jim that she and Jack will take care of him and his sister until their parents come back. After seeing that the house is full of food and supplies, the couple quickly decides to stay there for a few days. The man, whose name is Jack, says he is going outside to hide the vehicle. It almost seems like they are running from someone and trying not to be found. Around midnight, Jim overhears the couple talking. They seem very happy to be staying there. For safety, Jim and his sister hide inside their secure room. This is the reason they have managed to stay alive all these years. The next morning, Jack has already prepared breakfast. He acts as if he has always lived in the house. Jim sits quietly with an innocent expression on his face. Then he calmly says that all of this will be over soon. That night, Jim sits silently by himself. A moment later, his dog comes over to him. It looks as if the dog is trying to tell him something. Without wasting any time, Jim picks up his sister and locks her inside the safe room again. Downstairs, the couple is still lost in their own world. They have no idea that death is already heading toward their door. A little later, the woman goes into another room to use the bathroom. As she looks outside, she notices several zombies standing near the window. She immediately turns off the lights, hoping the zombies will leave. But suddenly, the back door bursts open. At that moment, Jack hears a scream. He instantly pulls out his gun and rushes toward the sound. When he arrives, he sees his girlfriend lying on the floor, covered in blood. That was the last time anyone ever saw that couple. Meanwhile, Jim and his sister continue playing outside as if nothing happened. Jim and his sister keep playing outside as if nothing had happened. At the same time, a long-haired man is wandering through the forest. He notices several traps buried beneath the snow. Following the trail, he eventually reaches the cottage. Suddenly, a little girl appears in front of him. Before he can react, something shoots into his neck. It is a tranquilizer dart. Obviously, Jim fired it to protect his sister. When the man finally regains consciousness, Jim is standing nearby with a gun in his hands, watching him carefully. After a brief interrogation, the man introduces himself as Dan. He is a special forces soldier searching for his wife somewhere to the north. Jim pauses for a moment because there is something different about this man. Unlike everyone else, Dan is not interested in food or medicine. He only wants his gun back so he can continue looking for his wife. Seeing an opportunity, Jim makes a deal with him. He wants Dan to help restore electricity to the cottage. When Dan notices the children are alone, he asks where their parents are. This time, Jim does not lie. He explains that his father was a scientist who disappeared a long time ago. His mother is a secret agent who recently left on a mission and is expected to return soon. Dan is shocked when he discovers that the entire house is powered by a treadmill. He never imagined that the cottage depended on someone running to generate electricity. Suddenly, a zombie appears outside near the window. Without thinking twice, Dan grabs a discus lying nearby and rushes outside to kill it. After taking down the zombie, he returns covered in blood. Jim immediately asks why he had to kill it. The windows are made of special bulletproof glass, and no zombie can get inside anyway. Hearing something like that from a child makes Dan feel sorry for both brother and sister. He climbs onto the treadmill himself and starts generating power for the house. The entire night passes quietly. By morning, Dan is completely exhausted. Just then, Jim's little sister walks over and circles around him. Before Dan can fully wake up, she quickly runs away because he smells terrible. The first thing Dan does after getting up is take a shower. The little girl even brings him a hairpin. Meanwhile, Jim has gone outside. Every morning, he checks the traps around the area to keep large groups of zombies away from the cottage. While inspecting them, he finds a live zombie caught in one of the traps. Back inside the cottage after breakfast, Dan decides to visit the place where Jim's mother worked. On a table, he notices a photograph and a set of car keys. Without wasting any time, he heads toward the garage, but the vehicle inside is broken down. Then he notices a hidden room tucked away in one corner of the house. Assuming it is some kind of storage room, he starts moving toward it to take a look. Before he can open it, Jim stops him. After spending more than a day with Dan, the brother and sister have realized that he is not a threat. Trusting him, they do not go into the safe room that night. However, something strange happens. Jim handcuffs himself. As Dan is getting ready to sleep, he hears a noise outside. Looking through the window, he sees Jim out on patrol. control. Jim returns to the trap he checked the previous day, where the zombie is still caught and has not been killed yet. Just then, Dan suddenly arrives at the trap. He assumes the zombie might be Jim's mother and believes Jim wants to put her out of her misery, but Jim raises his gun and stops him at the last second. Angry and frustrated, Dan returns to the cottage. He goes straight to the room he was forbidden to enter before and opens the door. Inside, he finds a blanket on the floor and deep scratch marks covering the walls. It is obvious that the room was built to keep zombies locked inside. A moment later, the sound of a vehicle echoes outside. Several survivors step out of it. However, their intentions are clearly not good. They pull out their guns and begin moving around the cottage. Dan stands where he is without a weapon. He refuses to take even a single step forward. Meanwhile, Jim returns from checking the surrounding area and watches everything from a distance. His little sister is standing at a second-floor window, waving her hand excitedly. Just as the intruders are about to notice her, Dan suddenly appears and pulls her away. Since all the doors and windows are securely locked, the intruders eventually give up and leave. After that dangerous incident, Jim trusts Dan even more and returns his weapons to him. Dan begins to feel that it is finally time for him to leave, but something inside him does not want to go. That night, he dreams that his wife is calling out to him. When he wakes up the next morning, he makes a major decision. He decides to take Jim and his sister with him while searching for his wife. That way, he can continue his mission and also keep the children safe. Jim does not hesitate for even a second. He refuses to leave with Dan. He has already made up his mind to stay at the cottage and wait for his mother to return. But suddenly, loud noises come from outside. The thieves have returned. This time, they have brought more people with them. The situation becomes even worse when they capture Jim's little sister while she is outside playing. As the danger closes in, both sides come face to face. Suddenly, gunshots ring out. Within seconds, two of the intruders collapse to the ground. Dan immediately rushes forward and successfully rescues the girl. The person firing the shots is none other than Jim's mother. However, during the chaos, Dan is injured as well. One of the attackers shoots him directly in the chest. Dan falls unconscious and collapses to the ground. He has no idea how much time passes before he finally wakes up. To his shock, the gunshot wound in his chest has completely healed, but he also discovers that he is tied up with a thick rope. Upstairs, Jim and his family are waving at him and calling him over. Still confused, Dan goes inside, where Jim's mother, Melanie, finally tells him the truth. He learns that ordinary infected people lose control of their minds. They hunt only to satisfy their hunger. But there is another type of infected as well. These special infected retain fully functioning human minds while also possessing the physical abilities of zombies. Their bodies can heal from injuries and illnesses at an incredible speed. The ability to heal quickly from wounds and illnesses is one of the powers these special infected possess. But there is a problem. If one of them suffers a serious injury, they can lose control of themselves and become violently enraged. After hearing Melanie's explanation, Dan finally understands something. He is one of those special infected. Melanie nods in agreement. After being shot, Dan should have either died from blood loss or been left in critical condition. Instead, he simply passed out and woke up as if nothing had happened. Then Melanie reveals something even more shocking. Jim is a special infected too. That means the couple who disappeared earlier were not killed by anyone else. Jim was the one who killed them after losing control of himself. That is why he handcuffs himself every night before going to sleep. Dan immediately remembers the room covered in scratch marks. That was where Jim stayed whenever he went through one of his transformations. Suddenly, the sound of a vehicle approaches the house. Holding her daughter in her arms, Melanie steps outside to meet a militia group. It seems she knows the white-bearded man leading them. They explain that his daughter ran away with a boy, and he has been searching for her with his men ever since. Melanie promises that if she finds any clues, she will inform him immediately. Satisfied with the answer, the man leaves with the rest of his group. That night, Dan asks Melanie about the history of the cottage. Melanie explains that the National Security Agency had predicted the virus outbreak before it happened. Because of that, they built a small number of secure homes in these isolated, snow-covered regions. The purpose was to keep their agents safe if society ever collapsed. Hearing this makes Dan angry. He believes Melanie and her agency should have warned ordinary people in advance. Maybe more lives could have been saved. Melanie lowers her head in shame. She explains that both Jim and his sister suffered from serious health problems since birth. Jim's father was a biological scientist. Knowing that Jim would not survive beyond the age of 3, he took a huge risk. He injected Jim with an antidote derived from the virus. As a result, Jim unknowingly became a special infected, but the outcome was tragic. One day, Jim lost control of himself and bit his own father. His father did not survive. Melanie had no other choice. She was forced to kill him herself. After hearing the story, Dan gains even more respect for the children's mother. Seeing Melanie's strength and courage makes him want to help her family in any way he can. As time passes, Melanie and her family begin trusting Dan more and more. One day, Jim's dog suddenly starts barking frantically as a warning. Jim immediately realizes what it means. He is about to lose control again. After locking himself inside the room, screams begin echoing from behind the door. Melanie's heart feels like it is breaking apart. heart, but she forces herself to stay strong and quietly waits outside the door. That night, Dan decides to stand guard. Having another adult in the house finally proves useful. However, nobody notices that Jim's little sister suddenly collapses while playing outside. When Melanie examines her, she realizes the girl has suffered a heart attack. This was the heart condition Melanie had mentioned before. Unfortunately, they only have basic medicine and simple medical supplies. Because of that, the girl's chances of survival are very low. Dan suggests that they could infect her with the virus, just like Jim, but Melanie firmly refuses. She's not completely sure that it would work. She explains that Jim suffered through a great deal before surviving. In the end, they make the painful decision to let the little girl pass away peacefully. By the time Jim has fully returned to normal, the family gathers to say their final goodbye to his sister. Watching all of this, Dan realizes that it is finally time for him to leave. Even though Jim and Melanie repeatedly ask him to stay, he stands by his decision and sets off to continue searching for his wife. After 2 members of the household are gone, the cottage suddenly feels empty to both Melanie and Jim. Not far away, deep in the forest, the white-bearded man's group discovers the vehicle that Jack had hidden. By pure coincidence, the white-bearded man has been searching for the same couple who previously tried to take over the cottage. Melanie's cottage happens to be the closest one to where the hidden vehicle was found. Because of that, the men decide to investigate her home. Meanwhile, Dan is sleeping out in the snow when he suddenly wakes up after hearing footsteps. Once the sounds stop, he steps outside and notices a trail of footprints leading directly toward Melanie's cottage. A deep sense of unease fills him. Without wasting any time, he rushes back. From a distance, Dan sees that the cottage is packed with militia members, including their leader. The white-bearded man begins questioning Melanie about his daughter. His men have found several belongings inside the house that once belonged to her. Melanie is trapped. She does not dare tell a lie. At the same time, Dan quietly slips past the guards and sneaks into the cottage from behind. Inside the kitchen, he finds Jim hiding. Once Dan learns how many enemies are inside the house, he pulls out his weapon. Moving like a shadow, he begins silently taking down the militia members one by one. When Dan finally reaches the main hall, several armed men suddenly surround him and hold him at gunpoint, but his next move leaves everyone stunned. He takes a knife and slashes his own neck. The people around him can only watch in shock. However, Melanie immediately understands his plan. She quietly grabs Jim and slips out of the hall. A short time later, Dan completely transforms. It is as if an incredible power has awakened inside him. He quickly kills the white-bearded man's followers and finally eliminates their leader as well. This time, Melanie does not restrain him beforehand. As a result, she is forced to flee the cottage with her son. The moment Dan unleashes his furious roar, zombies from all around the area begin moving toward the house. The next morning, Dan wakes up and finds the entire cottage destroyed by zombies. On a table, he discovers a letter from Melanie. In it, she explains that she and Jim have already headed north. If luck is on their side, they may meet again someday. With a smile, Dan picks up the toy that Jim treasured most. He hangs it over his shoulder and continues his journey north in search of his wife.